Hello and welcome to beautiful Pickett, Wisconsin on this Monday, July 20th, 2026. It is opening day for EAA AirVenture 2026 and I was at the seaplane base earlier this morning. Today I am here to do a run for this Fox twin cylinder engine of a customer of mine. So in my last video that I shot in the garage, I was showing the setup and all that, and I just taken some more pictures here that I'll put on here prior to the run and show you this. And I was talking about how much compression this engine had and how my starter wouldn't start it, turn it over and everything. There were some suggestions and some really good ones, because my thought was take a plug out and do one cylinder at a time, but there were some suggestions about just loosening both plugs slightly, get it running, and then tightening them both up. That's a good suggestion, not an ideal solution, and for two reasons. I don't really want to have to be trying to do that, because what if the engine dies and then it's like, oh crap. So anyway, I don't want to have to do that. And I also have these remote glow igniters on the plugs, which makes that impossible to do with that, so I'd have to start, use two different starters or nice starters on there. So I came out here and I had one of the plugs loosened a little bit. And just for the heck of it, I put my electric starter on there and it turned this engine over easily. I had this battery on charge for a day and a half, and maybe, just maybe, it wasn't really charged fully. Because then I tightened it back up to get full compression again, and it still turned it over. So let's just go with the fact that this thing was wanting to turn it over, and that's how we're going to do it. So I didn't mention the weather. It's 77 degrees. The last week or so there's been a lot of wildfire smoke from Canada into the state, and the air quality's been unhealthy to very unhealthy, and it just looks weird. The air quality is not super great right now. I don't think this engine's going to care. But it is breezy. It's very windy, so I'm hoping A, that you can hear me, and I'm hoping that my wind buffer on my microphone allows you to hear me and this engine. So what we've got here is a remote glow igniter supplied by Wayne, buddy of mine in Australia, who also gave me the big nickel metal hydride stick that I'm going to use to power this. I've got a Zinger 13.8 prop. The Fox manual said a 13.8 prop would be good. This is a 13.8. I just wanted to go with the wood prop to start with, just because it was more period correct. I've got these carbs preliminarily set. Now, it's not going to be possible for me to adjust the low speed on this one while it's running. So I don't know how this run is going to pan out. I've got a little bit of fuel left in a tank over here and a little bit of fuel left in my vehicle. If we run out of this and I'm still having fun. Otherwise, I have no issue with coming back later this week and running this engine again too. So we'll just have to wait and see how it goes. So those are the parameters for today's run. I'll put up the pictures that I took of this setup, and then we'll just start a run. Okay, I don't know how concerned I'm going to be with getting RPM readings. I think it's more important just to see if we can get this thing to run first. So I'm going to go ahead and plug my battery pack in. I do not have the ground wire connected, so I'm not energizing the plugs yet. Make sure that stays connected to this rubber band so that I'm not energized. I really would like this to go someplace else. Maybe there it'll sit. I don't know. We'll see. So I've got the fuel lines hooked up. I've got the throttle at full. So here's the thing. I usually always prime by covering a barrel of a throttle. So because there's two carbs on here, I'm gonna have to see if I can do it with one hand and watch my fuel line here. Okay, I believe it took fuel. I believe it took fuel. It's hard to feel if I'm actually getting fuel. I thought I saw fuel go up in there. Maybe I just do this. Now I know there's fuel in there, so I'm going to start at attempt to start it at about 1/3 throttle. Now I need to find a ground point. Maybe I can ground it there. That would be nice and convenient. Okay, I shut it down there. Yes, I was seeing it running. Both cylinders were running. This one was shutting out initially, but I've got this high-speed needle pretty closed on this. What I want to do is I want to close this low speed just a little bit and see if that changes anything on this side. This setup is really nice because I can actually just plug it back into this back screw and re-energize both plugs, and that's how it was running. So hey, guess what? It ran. It ran pretty darn good considering all things. Initially when I started it up, this cylinder was running fine. This one kept cutting out. It was stone cold. That's when I started leaning this high-speed needle and putting the glow igniter back on. But hey, I'm pretty happy with this so far. We've gone through quite a bit of fuel, so I think what I want to do is let this cool for a few minutes, and then maybe I'll siphon fuel from that tank, put it in here. Now the thing I didn't mention was that I've got two brand new Fox RC long plugs in here, and those are idle bar plugs. The ones that came in this engine were the same plugs, but they were very old and they just didn't glow very good. This is about 5 to 7% nitro fuel. So let me give this a break, and I see a peak reading here of 9,050. So hey, not bad. Okay, I hope this isn't really a bad idea, but I wanted to swap propellers. So I've got a master air screw 14.6 on here to make it a little bit larger. But the crankshaft is so short that I couldn't fit the back plate of the spinner on, so I'm actually running this spinner without a back plate, and that's the part that I hope isn't a bad idea. Never done that before. So the other thing is, I don't particularly care for my angle. And this angle works really well for upright engines, but it's not doing so well for this engine. It's showing it off, so I think I'm going to fire it up here real quick, perhaps, maybe get a couple of tack readings, and then I'm going to shut it down. If it runs well again, shut it down and maybe angle my camera from this direction downward so you can kind of see the operation or see the full engine better, because this side view just really isn't doing it for me. So I don't know that I need to prime this. It looks like there might still be fuel in the line. So let's just plug this in, energize our plug. Okay, for whatever reason, this cylinder didn't really light this time. It lit and then it died out, and I don't really know why it would do that. Nothing has really changed. Let me open that back again and see what happens here. This cylinder seemed to be running fine. Maybe I probably should have been taking some tack readings with it, but I wasn't. I was running and I left the glow igniter on completely because it just seemed like that was the better way. In reality, I forgot to disconnect it to see. But I think what I want to do now is do the rest of the run or runs that I do here with this at a different angle. You saw a peak RPM reading of 10,180 with a 14.6. That's pretty respectable. So I'm just going to leave it and say, hey, we're good there. Let's just do some more, just run some more fuel through this thing and see if there's, it seems like this cylinder, when I leaned out that low speed needle after the first segment, that this cylinder seemed a lot better. Maybe I need to do the same thing here. I just put about 3 clicks on that. And like I said, I'm going to change camera angles now, get some different shots of this, and do some more run. Okay, so there's a good run. What I want to do now, since things are going so well, I'm going to let this engine cool down once again. I'm going to go get the rest of the fuel in my tank, or in the truck, put it in this tank, and now what I want to do is I want to open these throttle stop screws a little bit and see if I can get a little bit lower idle, because that last little adjustment here on this low speed needle on this side seemed to help this cylinder quite a bit, and I think they're both high speeds are set pretty well. So, and for the most part, if you see me doing this, it means the glow plug is not being externally ignited. If you see me connect it, then it is, and it should be obvious. But the last time I did that, I didn't hear any difference. So I was like, okay, I think we're pretty good now. So I'm gonna let it cool down, fill this tank up with the remaining fuel I've got, and probably just open each of these maybe a half a turn, so we can see if I can get about a 300 RPM or 3000 RPM idle. Okay, so I filled up my tank again, and I've opened each throttle stop screw half a turn, so it should give me each. So it should give me a little bit lower RPM. And let's see what happens now. Now, with the camera being here, it makes it a little bit tougher for me to start this engine. Let's see where I'm at. I don't want to be at full throttle. Okay, I wanted to stop it there. Looks like this low speed can be dialed in 2 more notches. My ears are ringing. It was running really well there. I think I recorded a low speed. My TAC doesn't hold the low speed, but I got down to like 3600, and it seemed like this cylinder dropped out a couple of times, and that's when I'd hit it, you'd hear it pop back on. So I'm gonna let this thing cool again. I made those little adjustments to this carb. This one seems fine. Now this didn't have the same peak reading this time. I think it only got up to like 9840 this time, as opposed to over 10,000. But you know, I'm fine with that. It doesn't need to be massively peaked out anyway. So I'm gonna let it cool, and we'll do one final little run here and then a wrap up. Okay, probably the final run of this thing for the day and maybe forever. It's cooling off some. The wind is really helping out. I was really hoping that the sun would stay behind the clouds because I think it looked better in the shade, but oh well. Let's connect our glow and fire it up. Let's just run this fuel out here real quick. Okay, I think we're done. holy crap, this was probably one of the most enjoyable engine runs I've done in a long time. This thing really, pardon me, but this engine really kicks ass. I really like it. Now, how it would work on an airplane, obviously I can't say. I'm oil soaked. All I can say is on this stand, on this day, under these conditions, I think my hearing is affected. I think this thing ran pretty darn well. So the thing is, I had myself so psyched out about being able to get this thing running and tuned that I am incredibly surprised and happy right now, because I really didn't think I really wasn't sure I'd be able to get it running, especially as well as it is running. So I have no complaints. This thing is awesome. It's fun to run. It's even with the exhaust, it's loud. I can only imagine what it would have been like had I tried to run this without mufflers. So I hope in these last few shots looking down like this that you're able to see the amount of oil that's coming out of it. Both cylinders. Now I think this exhaust diverter is kind of angled up more, but this one's really wet over here. This is really wet over here too. So there was definitely adequate lubrication going through this engine. Man, this thing is just fun. I mean, that is fun. That's all I can say. This was really enjoyable. And I hope everybody learned something. I know I learned a lot about this engine, about myself, about running a spinner without a backplate, which seemed to be okay. I really like this 14.6 prop on here. Now, when I ran the 13.8, I didn't have it tuned properly. It was just running, but it wasn't tuned. So I don't know, who knows? I've got some fuel left here. Maybe I'll throw the 13.8 prop on there again with it like this and shoot another quick segment so that we can see, with it tuned exactly as it is right now, see what it does with that 13.8 prop. Why don't we just do that? I'm gonna go ahead and let this thing cool long enough for me to swap props. We'll put that on again, and the bonus segment of this video will be another short run with the 13.8 prop, probably from the side view so that you can see the RPM readings instead of me trying to set it up like this again. So let's do it. Okay, bonus footage, 13.8 prop. May not be much different than a 14.6. I think they're approximately equivalent, but there's only one way to know for sure, and that's to try it. So let's do it. Okay, that'll be it.